This is the Be Helpful podcast, where conversations with budding entrepreneurs prepare you for the wild journey of building a business or side hustle. All right. Today I sit down with Evan Marshall. Evan is the COO, Chief Operating and Outreach Officer of Black Menswear. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Man, I appreciate it. I'm excited to learn more about Black Menswear, more about your entrepreneurial journey. And so let's dive into it. So my first question I ask every guest, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I didn't really have a specific thing. I just wanted to move the needle further where my parents were. I kind of came from the unique upbringing in terms of both of my parents went to college. My mom got her master's, so I grew up like suburb as heck, but it was cool. But like I wanted to obviously, but like even not to get too deep into, but even like from my family lineage, there's a lot of people that have accomplished a lot of great things in my family history. So just wanted to make sure that I'm continuing to push that needle and moving that bar forward, to kind of continuing that lineage, continuing that legacy, and then passing it on to my kids when I have them as well.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I love it. I love the openness to explore whatever it is, but always just push forward. So that's pretty dope.
Correct. Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about your career and kind of how it's led you into becoming an entrepreneur and working on Black Menswear.
Yeah. Fast forward back to a while. When I first graduated college, I worked corporate retail for a while. I was at Lord and Taylor in New York for a while. People don't remember that. You got to be an 80s baby to remember Lord and Taylor. Anybody that's born after maybe 91 has no idea what Lord and Taylor is. But if you older than that, you know what Lord and Taylor is.
Yep, exactly.
For those who don't know, it was a department store, like a kind of like a in between, not as bougie as Bloomingdale's and Saks, but higher than Macy's. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
So,
That Nordstrom Bloomingdale's gap right there.
Yeah. Kind of in that space. So we worked there for a while. I was, and then I also worked. Then after that, was at JCPenney corporate office for a while. In Dallas. Met my current business partner because he was living in Dallas. We actually met through an Urban League Young Professionals meeting. So shout out to the Dallas Urban League meeting. We were actually the only two people probably under 25 at that meeting. So we kind of hit it off. And he was like, hey, at the time he was promoting parties. It was like a Tuesday. Said, hey, I'm hosting an event on Thursday. Came and I went. She showed a bunch of love. And just kind of been rocking ever since. But from that, moved to Chicago, started doing software sales. Wasn't really a passion, but if anybody's ever done software sales, there's some good money in there. So I was doing that. At the time, I was actually kind of maintaining my passion of writing in fashion. I was writing for this. This is probably around 2012, 2013, 2014. This is when the blog era was still really going strong. So
Yeah.
this is when like you had music festivals was really starting to take off. So I was writing for this blog out of Chicago called IMF. It was doing really well. We were doing a lot of events. And then my business partner, he and a former business partner, they had a platform on Instagram that had probably about this time, it's about 2014, probably had about 300, 400,000 Instagram followers. And this is in 2014. So this is like when Instagram first getting off. This pre algorithm change. So this is back when they were posting in chronological order. Like, literally like the most recent, like if you posted right now, that was the first post they saw. So engagement, none of that stuff even mattered at that time.
Yeah. 90% of the stuff were food pics.
100%, correct. So they had that, and they had built this really solid business model around, they were selling time slots, like a 10 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., 8 p.m., because it was chronological order. So whenever that time, that's when people were checking in and had the highest engagement. So they were selling time slots to brands were like Sprezza Box, Paul Hewitt, Axel Regato. Some brands are actually still around today. And they were selling time slots. And they wanted to kind of extend their website portion because this was blogging. So they was like, hey, we know you do a blog. Would you be interested in helping build out the blog for us? So built that out, did a bunch of fashion coverage. We interviewed a bunch of people, everybody from like June Ambrose to Noah Cyrus to Winnie Harlow to Luca Saba. Like, so we had some good interviews we were doing on that platform. Doing some interviews with that. And then as I was doing that and kind of building a name, we had built this organic engagement. I started having I realized like my passion wasn't doing the software sales. So there's a couple of freelance creative agencies in Chicago that allow you to kind of do freelance work. So I started doing freelance social strategy and influencer strategy for them. Did a couple of those programs, and I kind of was like the inverse. A lot of times people want to create like they want to take their 9 to 5 and they want to just take the side hustle so they can be entrepreneur. My initial goal was like, how do I take the side hustle to allow me to pivot my career?
Yeah.
Because I didn't really want to continue to be in software sales. So started doing those freelance gigs and kind of got that and kind of built that up. And that allowed me to kind of position to getting full-time advertising job. Because I had enough of the freelance gigs and also I had my own side project. Like, oh, okay, you can do that. And then after that, kind of got into advertising. Started working. I was at Burrell for a while. I was at iCrossing for a while. I was at Weber Shamrock for a while. I was at Day One for a little bit. So now I got about 8, 9 years in advertising experience from that aspect of it. Uh, so that's a long story short on that aspect of personal journey. Regarding Black Menswear specifically, about 2018, my current business partner, he had started doing this platform. This is back when 2018, 2017, repost pages were really popular. That's when everybody was doing reposts. Shade Room was blowing up back then. Uh,
Yeah.
and he was kind of he was putting positive imagery out there in the world because he didn't like even the unfortunate situation you see what's going on in Kansas City right now about how that 85-year-old white man felt that this 16-year-old black guy who rang his doorbell was a threat to him. To where like they didn't even speak. He just shot him literally through the door, right? Because for
Right.
whatever reason, he has this picture and concept of fear emanates off just you of the color of his skin. There's no reason for that, but that's what it was. So
Right.
my business partner was like, how do I continue to kind of debunk that by putting positive imagery of Black men in the world? I went to him, was like, hey, like you can monetize this if you start owning your own content. Like this repost page is not a scalable business model because you don't own that content. You can never license the uses of it. Nobody can pay you to because that's not your content. You'd always have to license it from somebody else. So from that, he tweaked that and started doing these things where he would kind of start developing a database of assets. He started doing these meetups because he's a Kappa. There's a bunch of Kappas in Dallas. And then he would kind of get them all together and they would do these things where he was calling them flash mobs. And they were kind of like the essence of, flash mob, just a bunch of guys just mob in one area at a time. So he was doing that and it started to gain some traction. Then he started doing one. Fast forward to that, he probably did about 10 of them around the country, just like different times when he was there. And then October 2019, we went to London. He didn't even go. I went because I was already going to London. We threw a London one together in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
In 3 weeks, we had 42 guys show up
Okay.
in London, and that's when it clicked for me. I was like, oh, we can get 40 guys to show up in London in 3 weeks. If we actually map this out as like a tour aspect of it, we can actually get hundreds of guys to come because now they can plan for it. They have
Yeah.
time to build it around. We can create advertising. And then in that case, also, we can monetize it because then you're giving brands the opportunity to build in storytelling and building messaging around that. So we got back. The first one we were going to do, we mapped out our whole 2020 tour. The first one we are going to do was the final CIAA weekend in February in Charlotte. So we did that. Got our first ever brand sponsor, which is an organization out of Vancouver called Indochino, pretty
Yeah.
popular soup brand. They were our first brand partnership ever. They sponsored a in-store event we called Dapper Conversations. Shot it at the Indochino in Charlotte, and then about 3 weeks after that, COVID hit. About 3 weeks after that, had COVID hit. And we had this whole plan for this tour. So we were like, dang, but that one went great. So because that was our first tour, we had like 160 guys show up. And we were like, oh, so that it worked. We gave them time in advance to come. You could probably edit this out and keep it shorter when you do that in the back end.
No, this is good. This is good.
COVID hit. So then we were like, dang, what can we do with COVID? Right. So mind you, at this time, we had already went viral once. I don't know if you've seen the photo of the little boy with the fist in his air.
Yeah.
That was our photo. Like we went viral already with that. So then when COVID hit, the second thing that happened during COVID, obviously, was the unfortunate situations of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. So BLM happened. And then, you had the protesting and things of that nature. What happened is during that time, similar situation with us being vilified about how we were protesting and doing that. What happened is people organically, user generated content started taking our old content and that started going viral. So people were going back and creating their own like TikTok stitches or IG reels or photos and saying, no, this is how what we actually are. Because mind you, in our photos, we're standing together in arms. We got our fist up. We're not marching, but like we're walking together. So a lot of people, so a lot of our content then went viral again, right?
Yeah.
So that would have probably been from that March into July. And then another thing we did is we were locked at home. So then that's when we started our podcast. Some of it is called The Check-In. One of the value adds to that is because everybody at home, we had access to a lot of talent. So we started doing IG live interviews, and we got everybody from like JB Smoove to Afion Crockett to Emmanuel Acho to Avant. We got all these people that hop on our podcast because they liked our platform. But then it was like a way for them to also to kind of put their message. So that kind of like those things, those are like it was like an accelerant.
Right.
And it was and transparently, emotionally, it was kind of a tough spot, right? Like it was good for us financially and business wise, on the level that we were starting to grow really quickly, on the level that, but on the same time, it's also like, would this really be happening without the situation of going on with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery? And to be fair, like we weren't opportunists. It wasn't like we went out and started doing it once that happened. They were taking the internet and the society was taking our old content, mind you, because it's COVID. So we're not going out and creating new content at this time. It's just, it was already out there. So like that also affirmed the messaging and what we were doing affected people positively, right?
Yeah, it resonated.
It resonated really well with them. So then we fast forward to August, and then that's when they did the Million Man March again in DC. So we're like, all right, we're gonna go to DC, and we did a flash mob in DC. And that one had about 300 people. Sadly, that same weekend we did ours is when our good brother Chadwick Boseman passed away. That was the day before we did our flash mob. So our first video that we did, especially with it being DC, you know, he's a Howard alum, was actually an homage to him, where you had us doing like the Wakanda sign, but then the voiceover was even. I know you've seen that iconic when he did the his commencement speech at the Howard graduation. So we took a snippet of that and put that as the voiceover to the video as an homage to him, like, you know, rest in peace, King at the end. And that one took off too, right?
Yeah.
People loved it because it was powerful Black men standing in solidarity. It was in DC. Like that kind of really took off. And then that one took off. And then we did Dallas and LA, September, October. Then it just took off. And both of those were over 200 people. Then 2021, the world opened back up slightly. And then we did a full 10 city tour then. And obviously from that, we just been rocking and rolling. So then now from that, we kind of been able to realize, and fast forward to now, we've really been able to grow it outside of, I love to say, 2 years ago, we was just the brothers in the suits. Now we have a full-fledged business. In the Africa, now we have a cultural impact agency. And we say impact because that is something that you can measure. So what we do is we champion positive stories of Black men through real, raw, and purposeful conversations. So if you are a brand and you want to speak to Black men authentically and holistically, you can partner with us and we can do social, digital, influencer, or experiential strategy on your behalf.
Got it. No, man, that's awesome. I appreciate all of the context and the background because it's got my wheels turning. One of the things that, excuse me, is really fascinating because I don't think I've heard this perspective from another entrepreneur or from a guest that's been on the show is the idea of your side hustle being your career pivot. Like that's a really interesting thing. A lot of people go back and get MBAs and go to school for that. But you said, you know what, I got this job. It pays the bills. I'm not really enjoying it. Let me start the side hustle doing something I love. And then that pivots you into your actual job because now you have the experience. Like that's a really smart way to do it. I don't think is a common approach.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of the things, so like now, because we get to this, I do a lot of, podcasts and panels now, and people are always asking me, so what would you do? Because I do with a lot of influencers. So the question I get is, I want to be an influencer full time, or I want to be a content creator full time, or I want to be this sort of creative outlet full time, but I have a 9 to 5 job and I'm not making, and I'm like, and it's like, but you can hear it, it's kind of stated with the sense of like, they don't really like their 9 to 5 job.
Right.
And I would even say to that, it was like, and I think it's like, my challenge to that is like, look back in terms of why you got that job. No matter what
Yes.
that job is, you took that job, you were at a season in your life, a point in your life where you say, this job is going to elevate me to the place I want to go. Why ever you wanted it to be, that is for
Yeah.
your determination to make. So what you have to then look at is, in this job, what are the skills I'm now developing on a day-to-day basis? Because I have to spend 8 hours here that I can then apply to whatever my side hustle is going to be. Don't look at this job that I'm doing 9 to 5 as taking away from the time that you had from your
Yeah.
5 to 2 or your side hustles. Like, what are you doing within that time that can be applied to that? For me, for an example, again, I was doing software sales. I hated doing software sales, but now one of the best things I learned from that is we still have to pitch brands, we're still trying to win business, is I learned how to be pleasantly persistent with my emails. And being pleasantly persistent with my emails is not
Yeah.
when you're doing a follow-up. Hey, did you get my note that I sent you last week? Hey, just circling back since we last spoke. It's, hey, no, we haven't spoken in the last week. Since we last spoke, we've done A, B, C, D, and E. Right?
Yeah.
Since we
Yeah.
last spoke, we were covered in this article. Since we last spoke, we were in this podcast. So what
Yeah.
that shows then, it shows that we're continuing to grow and scale in the business. More importantly, it shows that, one, we can execute. So if I'm pitching them, they see that other clients see value in us to want to work with us. And two, if you have that other value want to work with us, a lot of times what you realize then is no doesn't mean never. Because a lot of times they said no just because it's not right now. That doesn't mean they didn't want to work with you. That person on the other end could have been beating down the door within their team, like, hey, we really got to work with these guys. But budgets didn't align for whatever. But the more you keep executing, now you're actually even them giving them ammo to follow up and say, hey, you know what? Yo, them dudes I tried to bring in last time, since we last spoke, they done work with A, B, and C brand. They done did
Right.
the E and F program. And like, they did all that. But that's one of the things, if I didn't ever have software sales, I would have never learned that skill set of how to continue to move somebody through the sales funnel without
Mm-hmm.
being thirsty or being proactive. It's like, in the moment of doing that, I didn't realize that was a skill set I was learning, right? But
Right.
looking back on it, that's what it was. So that's, in hindsight, that's my advice to everybody else, is like, what are you cultivating on the day? Because you're there 8 hours. So you're developing a skill set. How is the skills that you're utilizing? Even if you don't think it transfers to your creative outlet, it does. Right.
Right.
So that's one thing
Right.
I would encourage, to your point, in terms of like, and if you look at it from that approach, that's what enables you to put the infrastructure in place to help you pivot that career. And whether it's, even if you're wanting to get into another 9 to 5, like I originally did, but then you also got to figure out how to framework the skill that you've developed in that side hustle to make it not applicable, but make it valuable and appealing to your new potential employer as well.
Right. Right. It reminds me a lot of kind of our mutual friend and former guest Jason Campbell.
Yep.
He said this quote. It's very smart to learn on someone else's dime.
Yep.
And that is spot on. It's like, take your 9 to 5. It might suck now, but it could be your investment in learning that new skill, that thing that's going to springboard you to the next one. I love that. That's really smart.
Yeah. What
Um,
did Dom Kenny say? OPM, other people money.
exactly. So I love what you're doing with Black Menswear. I love the story behind it. One of the things that got my gears turning, because I know we want to talk a little bit about goal setting, and I want to open it in a unique way, whereas you guys have seen success with virality.
Yep.
And so how does the art or the science or the luck of going viral play into your goal setting process? Like, how do you guys balance that? Because for someone who's never gone viral, it seems very unpredictable. Now, I've heard some people like Mr. B say it's a science to it, but I'd love your opinion and your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Mr. Beast is correct. There is a science to it, and there are things that are replicatable that can go viral. in that aspect of it. I would say the main thing in terms of if you want to, it's not about creating content. It's about, as you mentioned the word earlier, what is you creating? Does your content reverberate with the community that's looking to watch it? If it does that, that's what's going to create the virality. Because you think about why things go viral, it's based off of that person who watches says, I want to share this with other people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, I saw this, I thought this was funny. It says, this is so funny. I want to share this with everybody that follows me. Or this is so funny. I want to share this in these 6, 7 different group chats.
Right.
That's what makes it viral. So that's what you got to focus on, is what is the level of emotional connectivity, whether that be anger, happiness, sad, whatever that may be. How do you create that? That's in terms of the moment of kind of going viral to be able to do that. So I think that's one of the things we've been able to do well, which is why I say, even when our messaging, it says we tell real, raw, and purposeful conversations.
Yeah.
We don't just say not positive conversations, real, raw, and purposeful. Because not every conversation we're gonna have is gonna be good. Some of our content it goes viral, and people project negative things on us. Why it goes viral? All press is good press, and we've gone virality like transparently. Rest in peace to Kevin Samuels, because you don't wish death upon anybody. But a lot of times, some of our content went viral, not from us. Is then when he passed away, you had a lot of people saying, these are the brothers going to Kevin Samuels' funeral. These brothers like honoring his legacy. We never had a conversation with him. We never said anything support. But again, those are other people. My point is, he made some people feel some type of way to the extent to where they saw us. They projected that emotion from seeing Kevin Samuels onto us, and then created a piece of video that then went viral, and other people felt that same way. We actually never had a problem with it, because mind you, there was never actual connection between us. And we realized this is an emotional connection and a projection that you're putting upon us. But at the same time, if our content makes you feel some type of way in that regard, that is still a positive thing, because you're still getting the messaging out there. On the flip side of it, that's a somewhat negative way in terms of we went viral. On a positive way, last year, when the Minions movie was coming out, there was all these things about, Minions were pulling up. Everybody started taking our flash mob. White people included were taking our flash mob videos and like, this is how me and the kids pulling up the Minions movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like the whole thing, like we getting suited to go to the Minions movie. Literally, you had like white moms and white dads in like Nashville, Tennessee, using our clip talking about me and the lacrosse team pulling up to the Minions movie, and it's using the flash mob video. So that's another positive again, because it made you feel that way.
Exactly.
We're not doing that, but you seeing that content speaks with you and invokes such a level of emotion that, that's how we gonna pull up to the Minions, right?
Yeah.
And that was on TikTok. It probably was about 30, 40 videos that combined. I think we have like a case that got like 50 million views across those 30, 40 videos. And we didn't that was old video content. And what makes it great is UGC. This is user generated content. We're not paying anybody. We're not asking anybody to do this. Is just people that live out there in in the internet world that are choosing to share this on their own. So when Mr. B says there's a science, that's kind of quote is the science. Can you create a piece of content that what they call quote unquote evergreen? That is not tied to a specific moment. It's not tied to a specific situation. It's not tied to a specific topic. Is it evergreen to where it resonates with people enough to where even 30 years from now, 5 years from now, people will see it and have some sort of emotional reaction to it?